Okay, folks, we're back with another installment. We just finished Romans chapter 1, verses 24 and 25. I'm going to pick it up and read verses 26 and 27 today, and hopefully we cover all of this. If not, I'll have to do a part two. For this cause, verse 26, the Bible says in Romans chapter 1, God gave them up unto vile affections. Now, what causes that? Obviously, it's what we've read in the previous few verses, that they, this in people that engage in this downward spiral of sin, who push the truth of God back, who make idols out of anything that is, that worship themselves or any other thing other than God, who, engage in this downward spiral of sin. And he says, for this cause God gave them up unto vile affections, for even their women did change the natural use into that which is against nature, and likewise also the men, leaving the natural use of the woman, burned in their lust one toward another, men with men, working that which is unseemly, and receiving in themselves the recompense of their error, which was meat. Now, there's a lot there. I hope I can cover this all in the next 8.5 minutes. I don't know. We'll see. But for this cause, it says, God gave them up unto the vile affections, these vile, evil, wicked affections, these desires, these cravings, these affinities. He's talking about basically at the end of it all, at the bottom of that downward spiral, leads to all kinds of sexual perversion, because they've dishonored their bodies among themselves. They have engaged in all kinds of idolatry and sin and everything that comes with it, the degradation that happens to the human soul, to the human body, as a result of sin unchecked in the life. For this cause, or for this reason, God gave them up unto vile affections. Basically, they craved darkness and evil, and so God just let them have what they wanted. If you crave darkness, then don't be surprised when more darkness comes into your life. But if you crave light and life and you want more of God, then God will give you what you want. He will reveal himself to you. And if you remember, earlier in the chapter, Paul was saying that God, through his creation, made his existence and his presence and his power known. And those that wanted to seek God, God would reveal himself to them. Those that held or suppressed the truth in unrighteousness, going back to verse 18, then if they want more darkness, then that's what they're going to get. And God would allow them to experience the natural consequences of their sin. For this cause, God gave them up unto vile affections, for even their women did change the natural use into that which is against nature. That's plainly talking about lesbianism. And likewise also the men, leaving the natural use of the woman, burned in their lust one toward another, men with men, working that which is unseemly. Now, I'm not going to go into graphic detail about what all that means, but y'all know. You already know. I don't have to explain to you that he's talking about homosexuality and how that is basically, it's really hard to go down from there. Now, people can and do, bestiality, pedophilia. There's all kind, but that downward spiral keeps going. When you get to the bottom, there really is no bottom to the depth of human depravity. But these things are I'm looking for a word here, and I'm not, it's on the tip of my tongue, but at any rate, these things are basically exhibit A in terms of, okay, this person has been given over to a reprobate mind, and they're completely perverted and completely just, outside of, you know, outside of the will of God, outside of relationship with God. They've been left to their own devices, left to themselves, given what they wanted, and they're allowed by God to pursue to the end that they can their own wicked heart. And this is where it will lead them down to the depths of depravity. And so, likewise, also the men, leaving the natural use of the woman, burned in their lust one toward another, men with men, working that which is unseemly. Again, this ain't, none of this is cool. None of this is natural. It is perverted, and it is sinful. And so working that which is unseemly, and receiving in themselves the recompense or the repayment of their error, which was meet. That word meet means just fitting. That it is fitting that they experience the natural consequences of the sin that they love and the sin they embrace. And, the Bible says the wages of sin is death. And so, it's just one of those things that God is speaking through Paul here, revealing that when you see these things, these are earmarks of somebody who has given themselves over to a reprobate mind, and who have rejected the truth of God. They've made themselves their own God in a sense, and worship themselves and do what they want, what feels good, what is pleasurable, what they think is going to bring satisfaction and fulfillment, and it only ever brings disappointment and emptiness. And there are natural consequences to these behaviors in this lifestyle, and so I'm not going to get into all of that right now, but y'all pretty much know what that would be, all the consequences that come, from being, a sexual pervert, really is what it boils down to. But that God gave them up, for this reason also God gave them up. Again, that same phrase that we saw back in verse 24, when he gave them up to uncleanness through the lust of their own heart, God also gave them up unto vile affections. And likewise the men, leaving the natural use of the woman, they burned in their lust one for another. So when somebody tries to tell you, oh, well, Jesus never talked about homosexuality, or, homosexuality is not sin, it's just people were born that way, or what? No, absolutely not. Nobody was born that way. Now, we all were born into sin. We all have different proclivities toward different sinful behaviors. Before we were born again, there were certain things in my life that appealed to me, in terms of, like, I was for years and years an alcoholic and a drug addict. The riverboat didn't really appeal to me much. Homosexuality didn't appeal to me at all. But for some people, that's their natural, sinful proclivity, or what sin unaddressed, undealt with, will lead them to. For me, it was, like I said, it was alcoholism and drug addiction. Thank God, when I got saved, I got born again, I got delivered from that. And I know a lot of people who have been delivered from homosexuality, or what they call the alternative sexual lifestyle, and all that stuff. But the bottom line is that this downward spiral of sin will lead people down to the rock bottom. Sin will take you further than you want to go. It will cost you more than you want to pay, and it will keep you there longer than you want to stay. And so, as Paul is describing these things, again, the theme of the first 3 chapters of Romans is Paul is establishing the fact that all men are guilty before God, and all men need redemption through Jesus Christ. And so that's all for now. I'll come back at you later. I love you all, and I'll talk to you later.